Welcome everyone to the journey of the modern adult learner in an age of AI. I'm Jennifer Parker, and I am joined today by my teammates, Madeline Craig and Stefani Boutelier. And the three of us have been doing quite a bit of research around adult learning and this innovation called generative technologies. And what we've seen is that there's a real journey happening between the way our different levels of adult learners are embracing or interacting with generative technologies. We had a lot of key questions that kind of guided our practice. We were wondering, what does this journey of the modern adult learner look like? What are today's modern adult learners looking like, especially with different generations like Generation X and Alpha, etc.? We also wondered about how we facilitate and engage with them, because it seems like some of the ways we train and interact with our key stakeholders is evolving with generative technologies. We also wondered if modern adult learners' approach to generative technologies were varying depending on the level of adult that they are or the generational impact. And then lastly, but certainly not least, how do modern adult learners navigate Gen AI use in their own personal and professional practice? Are they embracing it? Are they shying away from it? What is that interaction looking like with regards to generative technologies? So I'm sure many of you have had some of the same questions. What this ended up being is a multi-year collaboration where we've actually incorporated it into 4 different frameworks that are guiding what we do in our work with adult learners. And I'll walk through each of the 4 of these in our quick session today. The EMP model, which talks about the who are we working with, emerging, mentee, or peer learners. The 4 C's are about how we facilitate with adults using co-learning, critical critique, creation-centered, or career connections. That third framework is all about the AI Balance Continuum, where we're trying to get our stakeholders to create AI balance in their thoughtful use of being AI ready or AI excited and AI resistant or AI don't want to do it. And then the last framework is the human-centered AI competency roadmap, where all of these stages have evolved into 7 steps that take you on a journey to self-discovery around your own use of generative technologies, or what you should incorporate in your practices with your students so that they're able to know, understand, and be able to use generative technologies. So with that said, I'm going to quickly speed through each one of the models and give you just a quick overview of our thinking. Our research started out with us wondering about the stakeholders that we were dealing with, and we were watching them evolve in their understanding and their attitudes and their perspectives. So we wanted to redefine what we had traditionally thought of as a modern adult learner. And our categories ended up being emerging, mentee, and peer, and I'll explain that here in a minute. We did a little research about, that Zoomers to Boomers idea and looking at the different generations and how they embrace change, how they view the world, maybe how they think about using technology, and if that had any impact. We also looked at the work of Knowles, of course, and andragogy, and those 6 concepts that guide adult learning. And what we came to understand is that we administered a survey, we placed it out on social media and with our networks, and got feedback from multiple stakeholders around what did they think about what a modern adult learner looks like. And the survey that I shared with you at the beginning and in the preview video are where you can also weigh in on these evolving trends around emerging, mentee, and peer learners, as well as their use and implementation and interaction with generative technologies. And so where we landed when we categorized our data was that there are really 3 buckets of types of participants that responded. We had K-12, we had higher education, and we had workforce respondents. The way they responded was how they look at adult learners and what their perspectives or demographic characteristics or features are. Emerging adults in higher ed are defined as those 18 to 25-year-old students or traditional undergrads. Those are the emerging students, the emerging adult learners that we're working with in higher education. The mentees in higher ed are really going to be our grad assistants or our assistant professors or our mid-career content experts that are mid-career moving up the ladder. And finally, a peer adult in higher education is someone who's an associate or a full professor. They're a content expert. They're a go-to person with expertise in their discipline or ideology. Now, these roles traditionally move across for each one in K-12. K-12 defined their emerging adult learners as student teachers or new teachers. They also looked at mid-career teachers and then veteran teachers or administrators or mentors or coaches. And then lastly, we analyzed the workforce. And the responses that we got back were that the emerging adult learners there were new hires and interns. Mid-career supervisors were the mentees, and the peer adults were those that have moved into an administrative position. They are veterans in their field or their industry, and they are seen as experts. So the EMP model analyzed higher ed, K-12, and workforce responses and asked them to describe emerging mentee or peer adults to define what that looks like in their workplace. We went through and actually categorized and created some descriptors so we could further define emerging adult learners, what mentee learners were, and what peer learners were. But what we found was that their interactions with generative technologies were based on some really thoughtful things that facilitators needed to do. And so that brought us to this idea of the 4 C's or the 4 C's of facilitation around generative technologies, because emerging mentee and peer learners all have a different perspective on generative technologies. You would think that new emerging learners are really excited to use AI. You would think that mentee learners who are in the trenches and mid-career professionals are dabbling with it. And you might think that veterans are a little reluctant, but that doesn't always seem to be the case. And so where we wanted to dig in further was, what can we co-facilitate? What are some common facilitator moves that we can bring into our training and the interactions with generative technologies to make it a consistent experience? And so we ask our participants, how do you use AI to co-learn? How do you critically critique generative technologies and the output? What have you used AI to co-create with? And how does AI support you in your career development? So those are 4 areas that we wanted to dig further into to find out, does this impact their perspectives, and is there anything we can do to facilitate change? We found that there were a lot of commonalities, that all 3 of the groups, emerging mentee or peers, they all like to co-learn. They all like to create things. They all like to critique and put the human component, human hat on to critique and look for hallucinations or bias. And they are all very interested in career connections. And so these 4 framing ideas that support the EMP model are things that we think could go into a facilitator training, you incorporating AI technologies or any kinds of technologies to support teaching and learning. The implications for practice, we had several examples. If you are co-learning with your participants, you might be interested in, if I'm a brand new teacher, I might want to use Microsoft Designer to design a personal avatar or create my own selfie. A mentee might be more interested in digging in to use Magic School AI, for example, to use the IEPs or create assessments a little higher level. The peer adults might be like, oh, let's really dig in. Maybe I want to investigate a new tool or see exactly what it is that's going to save me time. Show me how it works. But again, these are co-learning experiences that you might do in a think, pair, share, or I do, we do, you do. The implications for practice for a creation center is co-creation. It's that idea of creating with an AI tool. Everybody wants to create. Whether you're a new teacher, whether you're a mid-career professional, or whether you're a veteran experienced person. An emerging adult learner might want to jump into Napkin AI and create an infographic or use Gamma to do a presentation. A mid-career professional might want to scale it up a little bit by using Notebook LM to upload materials and then create study sets. Or peer adults might be digging into taking on a responsibility of using Canva code. So these are all ways that you can co-create with AI and scale up the level of application. Critical critique moves through different ideas. It's, for example, the fluff test. If you are able to use the fluff test, you can create prompts as well as critically evaluate your content in one simple test. We use the fluff test with both emerging and mentee and peer learners, or all three of them. We also created an AI roadmap. So the critiquing of AI doesn't matter what lens you come to the critique with, but we all need to have these skills. And so this is kind of a common application. The career connection piece, each one of our learners are at a different stage in their career. Emerging are just getting started. They might want to look at AI Google Career Essentials. The mentee adult learner might be interested in Kinsia or doing a Google interview to practice interview skills to move up. Or the peer adult learner might be looking at generative AI leader cloud training or doing some LinkedIn AI learning resources. So from that, we came to the idea that we've got 3 levels of learners and we've got 4 big ideas called the 4 C's that are areas where we can facilitate their use of AI that will embed them and excite them and interest them because it's going to help them grow their profession. So from there, we come into this idea of this third framework. How do modern adult learners approach generative technologies? Well, many of our emerging mentee or peer, doesn't really matter where they're at. Some of them are ready, they're gung-ho, they're AI ready and jumping in. Others are, I am not using AI in my course or in my profession. And so what we're trying to do is help them find the balance where they understand the tools and the models, they understand the features and functionality, and they are able to confidently and comfortably use these AI models. The continuum is really about finding the right mix. We need to adjust our mindsets. Folks need to know that being too overly confident with your AI use can lead to challenges, and being too overly negative about AI use can lead to significant obstacles. The danger of being too AI ready is that we jump in with both feet. Sometimes we don't check things for understanding, and we get really loose in our use of it and we trust it a lot. We are finding that many of our AI ready folks are very, very trusting of what they find, or they're very confident in their critique, for example, fluff testing, to look for reviews. So there is a danger of being too AI ready. It's a lot of work. The danger of being too AI resistant means you're not ready for the technological wave that's already hit us in 2023. Being too AI resistant means you're not going to use it and you're not going to allow your students or your staff or your coworkers to use it, or you hope that you can thwart its power, and it's just not going to happen because AI resistance is futile. And we need to find a way to balance being too AI ready and too AI resistant with that balance model. And that's what we call the AI balance continuum. And as facilitators in adult learning, helping your colleagues or your stakeholders find this AI balance is part of our challenge. The last part of our resources that we've developed in our study of adult learning is called the Human-Centered AI Competency Roadmap. And this is a 7-step process that will walk you through the different areas or the different concepts that you need to be a confident user of AI. And we start with the first one with asking ourselves before we jump on this journey, how are we helping modern adults become AI competent? How do they know what models to use? How do they know how to critique, how to create a prompt? What's happening in their own business and industry that they need to pay attention to with regards to generative technologies? And what is it that we want people to know, understand, and be able to do with generative AI? So these key questions are what bring us to our journey. We jump on that human-centered AI roadmap and we start with question 1. Should I use generative AI? Are we considering a balanced approach? Are you in the middle of that AI balance continuum? Are you knowing the power of AI and you've chosen some models? You need to know that if you can use AI, which AI you should be using or which AI model. Are you creating text, images, videos, graphics? What is it? And how can generative AI help me? So the first question you ask yourself on the pathway is, should I use generative AI and how can it help me? The second question is, which AI tool or model is best? Which of the models help me secure my data? Which ones do a better job with images? Which ones are great at presentations? How do I know from the buffet of tools that are provided by my organization which are better for my intended purpose? And helping our stakeholders understand models and what they do is part of that roadmap. In step 3, we ask our stakeholders, do you understand the privacy aspects of your tool? Like when you get into ChatGPT, what does ChatGPT pull from your personal information? What does it mean to be in a protected mode in Copilot or using an enterprise version where your data stays within house, within your organization's Copilot system or Microsoft system, or it goes up to feed the world model of Microsoft? So understanding these things and the privacy aspect is an important piece. On the 4th step of our roadmap, did we use effective prompt engineering? This is where tools like the fluff test can come in. Help me understand what should be in a good prompt. The who, what, where, when, why, and how, the format, language, usability, fanfare, function, what needs to be in my prompt. And how can I build a good prompt? Because we all know that if I do a really good job with my prompt, I'm going to spend less time interacting with the tool and more time getting to the heart of what my task was. The 5th step on our journey is, how do you critique generative AI outputs? Many of us aren't really sure what AI hallucinations look like. What do they sound like? What do they feel like? What should I be looking for? What are the look fors? Again, we fall on the fluff test where we come back to ideas like, was the format correct? Was it an outline when I wanted an essay? Is the language appropriate, using appropriate grammar? Are my resources usable? Was it intended for the correct fanfare audience? Or is it written for 3rd graders when I needed it for legal professors? And what is the function? Do I have the expertise or the context to critique this output? So we think about how we critically analyze outputs and understand hallucinations and those look fors, and we call upon frameworks like the fluff test to help us. In step 6, how do we acknowledge AI? What are the industry norms? Well, many of us have been reluctant to admit that we may have used AI. Well, we need to teach our stakeholders that it's okay because everybody's doing it. Is that how we roll? We need to share examples of how we are openly admitting, citing, sharing, and it's not an admission. It's actually a proud fact that you're empowered enough to use AI. And so we need to shift that paradigm. But in step 6, we are advocating for everyone to understand the proper acknowledgement of AI use, as well as understanding what's happening in your business or industry and how they are citing AI or using AI. That last step is all about reflecting on the process and our AI competencies. When we go back to step one, it's like a cyclical process, almost like a circular motion on our roadmap, or maybe we're going to take a few exits and detours here and there. But basically, we want to think about all these different steps as we try to build and scaffold our experiences and empower our use of AI. What do I need to beef up? Do I need to be better at prompts? Do I need to be better at looking for hallucinations? Do I need to be better about understanding privacy or tool and model selection or acknowledging use? And so that cyclical progression of reflection is a very important piece, and that landed itself in step 7 of the human-centered AI competency roadmap. So I hope you've enjoyed the 4 different frameworks that have evolved from our work. We hope that you'll take the survey and continue to weigh in on what you think about the journey of the modern adult learner and the use of generative technologies in higher ed, K-12, or the workforce. We hope that you'll reach out to us on LinkedIn or via email and let us know what you think. And again, thank you for being here. We shared several resources out in the conference website, and we're very happy that you chose to visit with us today. So thank you.